I'll be reading God's holy word from the Gospel of Matthew. I invite you to read along with me. If you are using one of the Bibles provided by the church, you'll find today's reading on New Testament page 29. Matthew chapter 25, verses 34 through 36. Then the king will say to those at his right, "Come, you that are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me." May we receive God's blessing for the reading and interpretation of God's holy word. For me, Matthew chapter 25, verses 31 through 46 is what ministry is all about. It is the heart of the gospel. It identifies the reality of Christianity, putting our faith into action. It is the essence of our faith, and I classify it as Scripture to live by. Jesus tells the story of the end of time, the gathering of all before his throne. For today, I have chosen to read verses 34, 35, and 36, but the story is Matthew chapter 25, verses 31 through 46. I invite you to take the time to read that. The title is The Right of the King. It is intentionally ambiguous. Jesus is the shepherd. He is the king. He has the right to judge. It is the right of the king to judge. And the righteous are placed on the right of the king. So it's a lesson on righteousness and the criteria for determining that righteousness, as well as who gets to call it. Who gets to specify what righteousness is, and who gets to decide who the righteous are. In our scripture reading, the king is the Son of Man. This is obviously Jesus. The scripture tells us that judgment is more than a confession of faith. Judgment is based on what God expects of us as Christians, to act with loving care for the needy. This is not the gospel of popular belief. This is the gospel of Matthew, who quotes Jesus. Judgment is based on faith and the appropriate response, which is to provide loving care for the needy. If we desire to be righteous, if we identify with Christ, if we want to be on the right side of judgment, if we want salvation, then we are to act with loving care for the needy. What is taught is more than an expression of faith. It is faith and living it. Faith and action. Faith triggers the appropriate action. Again, this is scripture we should all live by. The criteria for judgment: works of mercy to those in great need. Jesus talks about Judgment Day. When he does, he uses a metaphor of sheep and goats. This obviously represents humanity. The nations are gathered before him. All people are gathered before him. In our culture, we have many various interpretations. Some say Jesus separates the good and the bad. Some say it separates the faithful and the unfaithful. Jesus separates those who respond appropriately versus those who fail to respond with compassion to those with the most need. The sheep go on the right. The sheep get to hear, you are blessed. The sheep get to hear, inherit the kingdom. The goats, they go on the left. They also get to hear the words of the king at the throne. But the words they hear are, you are cursed. Leave me, harsh words, leave me. Go into eternal fire that was prepared for the devil. It's either one or the other. There's no gray area. There's no middle ground. Your faith requires an appropriate response. The lesson is one of the many biblical lessons about faith being put into action. We are blessed because works of mercy go to those in great need. We are blessed. I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was naked and you provided me some clothing. I was sick and you didn't just come and visit me. I was sick and you took care of me. I was in prison and you even visited me. The people that hear this, they're confused. Both groups, the active and the passive, are confused. And they ask Jesus, when did this happen? And the response, when you did it to the least of these. When you did it to the underprivileged. When you did it to the poor. When you did it to the needy. The reference is all human beings in need. The reference is to all of humanity. The reference is to everybody throughout the world because those in need, wherever they are members of the Lord's family. When you did it or failed to do it to a member of the Lord's family, you did it or failed to do it to the Lord. It is a loving family connection. If you attack my son, you have to deal with me. If you insult my wife, you insult me. Our relationship with the Lord is a blood relationship. And as we are in Lent and getting closer to Easter, that will be addressed in more detail. The homeless are members of the Lord's family. The poor, the hungry, the thirsty, even the strangers, the naked, and even those in prison are members of the Lord's family. All are members of the Lord's family. This means the immigrants and the refugees are all members of the Lord's family. I have seen these verses in action. I have witnessed it here with you and your ministry. I have seen you on the right of the King in your ministry here. Gateway, Meals on Wheels, Neighbors Helping Neighbors, prison ministry, the list goes on. As you know, recently I went on a school trip to the border between the United States and Mexico. And there are several things on that trip that I want to talk with you about, and will talk with you about, and write about, as time and space permit. But I have witnessed faithful volunteers that make a special effort to live by the gospel and care for God's children. Like you, their goal is to be on the right of the King. My most recent newsletter article was Derek's story. If you haven't read that, you can find it online. I was shocked when I first met Derek and listened to his story, because I saw what equates to slavery here in America today. His crime was coming to America, and it's a felony. I'll repeat that because I want to emphasize it, because it goes against our concept of freedom. It goes against the very founding principles of this nation. It goes against what we were willing to fight for and continue to advocate for as veterans. The concept sends goosebumps down my spine that coming to America is a felony. It came because when gangs overtook his country, they murdered ex-military. And because of this, he came to America. And he is confined and forced to pay $450 a month for an ankle bracelet. $450 a month that he cannot afford to pay. So he's a slave to debt that multiplies. And he's a slave to the system that created the debt. This is a blatant violation of the very essence of liberty. It goes against everything that the Statue of Liberty represents. It goes against the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. It is a violation of humanity. And it goes against the very essence of Christianity because it goes against the teachings of Jesus. With tears in my eyes, I wrote in my journal, I have entered into the twilight zone. I have gone back to a time when slavery was legal and permitted here in the United States. Today I have witnessed slavery with my very own eyes. It is my prayer that the American society will be outraged if the truth were told. I feel an honor to be a part of this program that has allowed me to see this with my very own eyes. There is a system of power at work that keeps him from being successful. Those words simply are not strong enough. The system holds him down and blames him for being there. I am a changed man. I don't know what I will do, but I cannot stand for this. I met him through a program called No More Deaths, an organization of volunteers. You can look them up online, go to Google and just do a Google search, No More Deaths. And you'll see the humanitarian aid that they provide. You'll see the good that they do. And also the abuses that they endure. The abuses that they endure for doing what Christ tells us to do. The abuses that they endure for doing good. Their goal is to help rescue people from death. Not just to help people, but to rescue people from death. They provide food, they provide water, they provide medical aid. And they do this while hundreds die in the Arizona desert every year. Last year there were 417 deaths in the desert. That's more than one a day, if you do the average. That averages out to more than one a day. And that's just the confirmed deaths, the more that go missing and unaccounted for. But their goal is just to follow the teachings of Jesus, to provide works of mercy to those in great need. They help people who have the most extreme need. They help those who have the greatest need. And who has the greatest need in our society? As you know, I have a passion for the homeless, as many of you. We have a passion for helping those in need. But who has the greatest of need? Of course, I know you're not going to call out the answer, even if you know it. It's those that are dying. Those that are dying are the ones that have the greatest need. And our society classifies them as illegal. Illegal immigrants. In social psychology, I learned about such terminology. It's used to degrade people. When you degrade them with language, they're easier to victimize and allows a system to abuse them and deny their human rights. No one is illegal. No one is illegal. Do we have illegal drivers? Oh, well, we might like to think so. There's some out there that are driving without a driver's license. But we do not classify them as illegal drivers. We do not have groups of people that are classified as illegal. We don't have the illegal tax filers. We don't have the illegal citizens of any kind. Illegal became terminology to devalue the human being. But that's what they are. They are human beings. Not only that, but much more important, they are God's children. And God seriously loves them. And God takes our actions towards them very seriously. People come to America for the dream. We know it, it's well known, the American dream. And we can proudly say, the American dream. A chance to have freedom in the land of the free. How about in the face of the global refugee crisis? They come for survival. They don't come seeking the land flowing with milk and honey. They just come for survival. Let us seek what is right. Let us seek the righteousness of God. You see, in the land of the free, there is a problem. If they are not free to seek freedom, then it's not the land of the free. Let us seek what is right with God. Let us seek to do what God classifies as righteous. And then, in so doing, we will be seated on the right of the King.